This week on Media Delta. Despite being released at the same time as some of Namco's other big hits like Pac-Man and Dig Dug, Mappy never quite had the recognition as those other titles. Only a small handful of pseudo-sequels and some recent Japan-only mobile games are all the recognition that Mappy has gotten in the modern age, despite it being seen as a classic even at the time. During the last years of the internet phase, however, gave Mappy another chance to shine, as Namco had created an initiative called Shifty Look that aimed to create webcomics based on some of Namco's old and unsung franchises. Shifty Look was popular enough that 2 web cartoons were commissioned, with one of them being based on Mappy. Does this web cartoon serve to its source well, or does it only serve as another disappointment like Mappy's lack of popularity? Let's find out as we discuss Mappy, the web cartoon. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Media Delta. We have a really weird one today, because this is one that I don't know how many of these we're going to get. We're taking a look, now that we've done this for a while, we are going to start taking a look at actual series. And I guess we are just going to go ahead and start off with a web series. Yeah, we're taking a look at web cartoons. So that's going to be interesting, because
it's official.
It is official, but it's also a web cartoon. But yes, we are taking a look at Mappy, and based on the 1983 arcade game by Namco, and this came out 30 years after the fact, in 2013. With me to talk about this, I have...
Carnival, I returned from the ashes.
Hi, this is Norman Rafferty. I do stuff on the internet.
Hi, I'm TorpidTypist, and every day's a journey here at Namco.
Yes. So, the Mappy web cartoon. This was a thing that came along because of a kind of an initiative that Namco was doing. This is official, even though this is definitely not done by people who work at Namco. It was part of Shifty Look, which was mostly a series of webcomics back when those things existed. They had a whole bunch of webcomics based on various Namco properties. Things like, say, kind of more popular titles, like you got Dig Dug, Galaga, Klonoa, and some of their other stuff, and also some of their classic stuff, Dig Dug, Xevious, Sky Kid, Rolling Thunder. Also, some of their more obscure stuff, like, say, Tower of Babel in Wagonland and Wonder Momo. It was relatively popular. They actually had, the webcomic artists that they had working on this were actually pretty big names at the time. You had Jerry and Mike of Penny Arcade. You had Scott Kurtz, aka the guy who does PvP, who also worked on this Mappy cartoon. You had Ryan North, aka the guy who did Dinosaur Comics. Let's see. Dave Malky. Also Zach Wiener of Saturday Morning Breakfast cereal fame.
Also Andrew Hussey of You Know Him.
You know.
Yeah. And that was for a very weird thing that kind of came out of this.
Because they did more than just the webcomics. They did various web shows too. Some of which had actual production value, unlike this one.
Yeah, there was 2 specifically. There was one that was based on a game we haven't ranked yet, although we will be ranking it shortly, it was based on the webcomic that they had for Bravo Man. The webcomic was Bravo Man, super unequaled hero of excellence, where the show was called Bravo Man, cartoon of unequaled excellence. There's also this, Mappy. Apparently this is kind of using the same animation style as the producers who worked on this. This was done by Scott Kurtz, and his name just kind of escaped me. It was Chris Straub. Chris Straub, yeah. Yes. So they apparently had worked on a web series called Laminations, which uses the same animation style as that. It's kind of a weird thing. To talk about this, we are going to continue using our questions format. So I have 8 questions to ask each person, and we'll be going alphabetical order and then reverse with the next question. So, Carnival, what episode is one that you'd like to talk about?
But I like finale actually pulling together established cutaway gags throughout the and in a way that shows that they were actually not just kind of winging it.
Yeah, it was a really good kind of finale thing, which actually kind of differed a lot from the show's normal format. Also, I'd like to point out specifically at this point that each episode of this, there were 13 episodes. Each one's about 8 minutes long. So it's not a long series to go through. I think there's someone has a video on YouTube that is every episode put together, and it's about 2 hours long. So it is not exactly a long series to go through, which is nice. So yeah, that finale was pretty good. Also is where they have a heavy cameo from Bravo Man in it.
It's a really stupid joke referring to the different crews working on that in the Bravo Man show.
Yes. So yeah.
I swear you were better animated and your voice is different.
Yes. Because yeah, I don't know if they got the actual voice actor that did Bravo Man, but they got a voice actor that looks like he was literally phoning it in. Not in terms of like the quality of his acting, but literally sounded like he was using a telephone to record his stuff, which was pretty good. So Rafferty, how about you?
Man, I think the only time I actually laughed out loud was the one bit where they mentioned that Dig Dug's not wearing a mask. He's actually solid blue the entire time. Which one was that? That's the one where they're outside the cop car?
So that is the one where I'm trying to find the actual episode. That is episode 4. Dig Dug and Mappy are friends. Where they Dig Dug gets Mappy to take a day off and go to a Wonder Momo concert, and their car breaks down, which that was a very good episode.
It was a pretty good.
To me, the writing I think seemed pretty flat. Like I think it was a slow burn, which is what they were going for. That kind of humor that you're expecting from C-Lab 2020, which was a good choice given their obviously limited budget. So, no, I think you guys have it right where you say it's like a 4-point finale. You pretty much have to look at the whole thing, I think, as a whole.
Yeah, because I mean, it's short enough that, yeah, it's kind of good to just take it in all at once. Because it was a very easy, the thing I watched, a lot of us watched it in one chunk, which was perfectly fine.
Sitting.
Yeah,
well, it still chimes in about 2 hours, so it's still like,
it's about the length. Yeah, so that was,
I mean, I distinctly remember watching the episodes as they came out, and there was a decent length of time between them. So seeing it like this is actually pretty all right.
Yeah. It's like kind of if you play like an episodic game that doesn't come out all at once, waiting till when it was all released before you played it versus playing episode at a time.
Do all maintain the same level of technical quality, which is good that it started off good. So it doesn't get jarring over time. I don't know if that's Chris Straub's doing, because I know he's a professional animator and I'd seen his other animations before. So they're pretty consistent about that. So like I said, it really comes off more of a movie. You'd be worried when something's episodic like this that they would suddenly like upgrade the software or try a new graphic style in the middle of it. And they're pretty consistent. So I really don't have a favorite episode. I think this works a lot better, I think, as one big chunk.
To be fair, much like Shifty Look, it was not long-lived.
Yeah. To point out, Shifty Look was founded in 2011 and was shut down in 2014. So
they did have one big, like they had one notable game to their name, which were like fucking Namco High.
Namco High, yes, which was
where you could date a bunch of different characters. But the problem was like a bunch of different Namco characters. Problem was it was basically microtransaction hell because you had to pay for each route.
And that one was the one that specifically that Andrew Hussey worked.
Yep.
But you could date Galaga, the ship from Galaga.
Yes. Also, a lot of other characters, as we mentioned already. So Torpid, what about you?
So we covered the big one, which is the 4-part finale, which is very, very good. It does wrap it up nicely, and it calls back to the rest of the series because this show is episodic outside of that part.
Yeah.
But if we're just going episodes before that, the car episode was also very good. But I'll go with the ninja episode.
Yes.
Just treating the plague of ninjas like a goddamn termite infestation or something. They're in the goddamn walls. They're everywhere.
Yes, and there are Are they trying to? They are protecting the ancient ninja's treasure.
No, they're trying to take back the ancient ninja treasure, which you learn is a shotgun.
Yes. That was a very good episode. Also, that is something that I'll probably bring up later on, but a very interesting callback to something, or a reference to something that this show is really weird about its references.
You mean like the Rolling Thunder one that is very good?
Yes. Because like the episode that I kind of liked from a conceptual, there's kind of two because they both kind of fit the same thing, and that is episodes 8 and 9, which are Buried Treasure and Shadowland. Because the thing about them is that this show has a really weird kind of dichotomy in terms of its references, in that like the characters in the show are pretty like, you have Mappy and Goro, but you have just Dig Dug, who's just called Dig Dug, and you have like Sky Kid, who is just called Sky Kid. Even though
Fuck, what's the Rolling Thunder guy's name?
They do call him Albatross. That is
Yeah.
They do call him. Also, when the Time Crisis guys show up, I believe they are referred to as their proper names, because like Dig Dug, whose actual name is Taizo Hori, and Sky Kid. The weird thing about Sky Kid, at least for me, is the fact that they have specifically the player 2 of Sky Kid, whose name is Blue Max, compared to the player 1 character, who is Red Baron. But the thing is that Buried Treasure is a giant reference to a Japanese-only game called the Tower of Babel, where they do, in fact, bring up the fact that the main character's name is, in fact, Indiana Borgnine. That is not a joke they made up for the thing. That is the character's name from the actual game.
It's really good because they even joke about it, trying to avoid copyright.
Yeah. In Shadowland, which is just a giant reference to the game Shadowlands, which is a really weird game. And like they even have a thing where he summons kind of this ghost friend, and they have the kind of joke where it's like he like opens up his mouth and he comes from the mouth, and they have the caption, "No, we are not making this up. This is actually something that happens in the arcade game," which I thought was neat.
Also, the joke is that the ghosts are just going around trying to get away from him because he just appears anywhere they are.
Also, he's very creepy. He has a very interesting way of talking. So yeah, that was the episode that I particularly, or the episodes that I particularly cared for. So, speaking of the characters, how do you feel about the setting / characters?
I mean, look, I think they're pretty all right. The main characters are really what get it. Sky Kid is probably the most fun character personally, but the main characters are pretty all right.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, Goro is honestly really good.
Yeah.
Probably the best.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it would have worked as well if they didn't have that good chemistry going on between Mappy and Dig Dug for a lot of it. Like if it was just a lot of these webtoons that you see are usually you have some put upon guy and he has a terrible boss that's basically modeled against Dilbert or whatever, and interloper. And that humor gets really old really fast. So I think that because they had, I think the Mappy Dig Dug pairing was inspired, and I think it made the series watchable. So I was pleasantly surprised by how they were able to sustain that.
Okay, what about you, Carnival?
Probably was saying about Dig Dug just being like, oh hey, we've got someone who's just the main character's friend, and not trying to start intentionally, and got back them up. And also, majority of his coworkers that at least are not deliberately awful. It doesn't go into the like people are bad. Thought that was
yeah.
Also, Sky Kid is always well-meaning, even if he's kind of a mess.
Yes, always with a catchphrase that they show on screen with a logo.
It's good. It's good. Sky Kid's great.
Yes. So, yeah, the character. This is just the setting. Also, the workplace environment of Nyamko is a good callback to Goro's Japanese name, because that is what it is. Because US people aren't going to get the nya little bit, but yes. We've kind of brought it up a little bit before, but how'd you feel about the flow, I guess, of kind of the series and also just like episodes in general?
If I were as they the way that last falling everything back together, I probably would have forgotten about it if I didn't just that as the individual.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree there, because I kind of like, I remember the golden age in the 2000s when suddenly everyone's convinced, oh, we have to make a web cartoon, we have to have something online. And then the weird television spinoff of like Gary the Rat, which was a Kelsey Grammer thing that was a Flash animation turned into, and those really had pacing problems. Those were just they seemed not under, they weren't active enough to be a cartoon, and they had too much dead air to be funny like this. So I think this had a professional team that, or if they weren't, they were doing stuff before this, right? Like Chris Straub was doing animations before this, right?
I'm pretty sure he was.
Yeah, I mean, it comes in and they look like they're here to do business. They know what they're about, and it's very smooth. I think it even works even better than like I would keep pointing out C-Lab 2021, which I thought. You don't get an anti-humor. That's the word I'm looking for. There's no anti-humor vibe from this strip. The whole thing is played straight and sincere. And you guys are picking up on a lot more Namco jokes than I did. I thought I knew Namco. So it's a lot more enjoyable, I think, because it has that sort of like honest sincerity and love about it. So that you were asking about flow, right?
Yeah, and that definitely answered it.
So speaking of flow, like a thing I could never tell about this show is if they're ad-libbing or if it's actually written ahead, because it definitely seems to be coming more from that ad-lib place, at least from the way they talk and act. But that's perfectly fine because the chemistry between the cast is really good, and you can tell, and that helps move things pretty well.
Yeah, it definitely, I feel, helped out with that.
Oh yeah, you just reminded me. Yeah, home movies is the kind of vibe I was looking for. Does anyone remember that?
Yeah, I could definitely see a home movies vibe from this.
Yeah,
because they might have done multiple takes. And they might have taken this best one. I'm not sure. I've listened to their podcasts, and their podcasts are pretty polished like this too. They just might be this good.
Maybe
could be.
But yeah, so either way, I do think it flows pretty well, especially like once again the 4-parters where it really comes together. As opposed to the episodic stuff, which kind of is a bit more all over the place. Because like especially the earlier episodes tend to be better than those become. Like it just felt like they got a better feel for it. That said, as someone who watched this as it came out, let me tell you, the wait between episodes was fucking excruciating.
I could definitely see that. Yeah, I felt it flowed pretty good. Didn't have any, like, each episode kind of lasted as long as it needed to, and like it's kind of weird with the fact that for the most part, a lot of the episodes don't do a whole lot of callbacks to the other ones, although when they get on later on, they do kind of do a few callbacks. But I felt like it flowed pretty well. And that definitely worked. So this is going to be kind of interesting because there really isn't a whole lot of casting, or actually, wait, never mind. So how about... Okay, I just realized an issue with my questions, and that I deleted some of the wrong things. Anyway, so how do you feel about the fact that really there's like 2 voice actors in this entire thing? Technically 3.
Yep.
Do you feel like that actually worked?
Honestly, yeah. I mean, there didn't need to be. The main characters, were perfectly fine, and they actually had a surprising amount of range given what they were working with. Also, they made heavy use of various effects on the voices for certain characters that helped hide it as well.
Yeah, that definitely helps.
And once again, it helped that the 2 people had very good chemistry.
Yes, because specifically the 2 that, so these, Chris Straub and Scott Kurtz did work together previously. They worked on PvP, the animated series, so that also probably helped having that previous chemistry.
Once again, I'm just really reminded of like the Borchardt and Small type stuff, like Metalocalypse and home movies. Because after a while, like I think the fact that they're doing a good job, like you said, they're professionals. They've done this before. The voices are different enough, so you can kind of get that they're different. But it's similar enough that it kind of does feel like 2 people just telling you some kind of goofy story. And since it is a goofy story, I think it works okay. It's got that sort of Bullwinkle.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 2 people. All they really needed. They never get does what.
Yeah, it's like it has kind of a it kind of goes on to the next question that I was going to ask, which is how do you feel about the fact that the writer's origins kind of started in webcomics, because that's kind of the vibe that I got from a lot of this, is the fact that it did feel like it was from previous people or people who had worked on webcomics.
Works better for
Yeah, because I felt like this is very much a webcomic brought to life.
yeah.
I can see a lot of Scott Kurtz's type humor in it, and if I had to guess, this is a lot better than what I expected from Scott Kurtz's writing, because I don't know if you guys read.
I have not in probably since it originally came out. I was going to say until it was heyday, but I found out that apparently it is still being updated.
Still going strong. It had a tendency to webcomics to have a tendency to be extremely wordy. Like they'll just like say way too much. And I guess because they have a rapid fire delivery, and because this is like an illustrated radio type animation, plus the fact that they have editing, and I think Chris Straub's influence, because Chris Straub also likes to do a lot of talking. Really, this did work a lot better. I had a feeling like if they tried to do this as a comic and did it using the worst of web vices, this would just have way too many words and would just be like copy and pasted like a Sprite comic where it's just like a wall of text. So the fact that it's animated and portrayed, with visual interest, I think added a lot to it. So it goes by a lot faster. So I the weird thing, I guess I'd sum this up by saying, even though they're webcomic writers, this is not written like a web.
All right.
Honestly, I feel nothing. It doesn't really help or bug me in any way. It's just that's what they did. I can definitely see it in their styling, but overall,
yeah, it's just something I noticed. I'm like, yeah, this kind of, at least to me, felt a little webcomic-y, but yeah, it did definitely hold its own. So it's not like it's just a webcomic in motion, but yeah, it was just something I noticed. Also, just a kind of a fun question. What other Namco property do you think should have had representation in the show? Because they definitely had a lot of representation of various Namco things, but there was a few things that I noticed that didn't get mentioned. Like, the one thing that I felt was surprising that did not get mentioned at all, there is zero mention of Pac-Man, which I felt must have been hard for Namco. But yeah.
I mean, needed more Galaga, personally. Just saying.
I was kind of that's why I kept comparing this to C-Lab 2021, which was a show where they took a Hanna-Barbera property that no one had ever heard of, and brought that back, and they had references to some other like rare cartoons, like the Bay City Rollers cartoon and that sort of thing on the show. They were allowed to use only like the D-listers of D-listing, like not even stuff that showed up in Harvey Birdman. And I'm guessing they kind of had some sort of mandate that they weren't allowed to use Pac-Man, since Pac-Man is still a money draw. So I would say I don't think this show suffers, because I think if it had bigger properties like Pac-Man, and doesn't Bandai own Namco? Isn't it Bandai?
Yeah,
Namco?
It's Bandai Namco, and I think it was
Namco.
I think it was Bandai Namco at the point.
Right, but even then, I mean, you guys are obviously enjoying the references a lot. I think because it's these weird, offbeat, obscure characters rather than Pac-Man, who has way too much baggage and would overwhelm this whole show. So I think they had a pretty good mix. I think picking the obscure characters we never heard of, because you obviously enjoyed the references, and I enjoyed the characterization.
Yeah.
Yeah. Real quick, I feel like, because Shifty Wook was supposed to be like a revival type thing anyway, so having Pac-Man, who was still in use and doing all shit, would have been largely pointless. But also, I feel like that gave him a lot more creative freedom to work with things. As well as I kind of find it more interesting doing the deep cuts rather than the big names.
Yeah, because it reminds me of a thing that Nintendo did, a game that they made for the Wii called Captain Rainbow, that did kind of a similar thing that this did, actually, where they took a lot of their lesser-known Nintendo characters. I mean, I would say in Japan, because like Little Mac was in that, but like things like Little Mac, Crazy Tracy from Link's Awakening, the Advance Wars Troopers, and Birdo. That I'm just remembering Birdo's appearance in that maybe might be a little problematic, but anyway. Yeah. So yeah, I was just more interesting, kind of like thinking of what other deep cuts they could have done. But like things like maybe like Mr. Driller or say Point Blank.
So Carnival, you got any input?
I was gonna say, yeah, like, anything, like, don't Bamco own the Tales franchise? So,
They do, yes.
so I was surprised I didn't see, like, any of the, like, really early Tales stuff, like, just get a nod.
The thing about that is I wonder if since Tale Studio is a different studio outside of their kind of main thing, that maybe there's a weird, they own it, but not in the way that they own, like, say, like Dig Dug or Sky Kid.
Also, the focus was largely older arcade properties.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna drop the webcomic thing, it's like that would be JRPG type stuff with JRPG type tropes, whereas this was easily like Americans having fun with their favorite Namco stuff.
Yeah.
Like their 80s stuff. This is all a lot of fuddy-duddy stuff.
Yeah, I think the newest thing they reference is Ninja Assault, which was the Ninja Assault, which I know it's PS2 era, but I know in like Time Crisis, which they used Time Crisis 2, which was also definitely like very early PS2 era, but yes.
I would strongly suggest. I really think they just got a list.
That could also. Yeah. So speaking of these games, how do you feel that the show used elements?
Needed to getting like, hey, remember this? Or get this reference? Without doing the Ready Player One kind of thing.
I get
fine.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one that I specifically like the most into the game they actually get is the episode that's based kind of on the Katamari Damacy thing, because the prince is the janitor of Namco. They use some of the elements of the games really good in that episode.
Right, and I think this Katamari is a game that, like, in general, unless you can get away with abstract and say, Mappy's a cop joke. There is more humor to be had with Katamari's weird physics than just...
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's funny that he shot the painting like one of the pickups from the arcade game. Also, it's like, oh, how are we going to get into this thing? Oh, of course Mappy has a trampoline.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I was trying to think of there was another one. The one that I'll go into it when I get it my turn.
Oh yeah, I mean the reason why I keep comparing it to Harvey Birdman is because Harvey Birdman also had a lot of deep holes of characters that you'd never heard of, but they invoked like those characterizations well enough that even when they were doing a deep pull, it's that chicken fat school of humor where they just didn't wait. They didn't milk it. Like Carnival said, they would just present it and then move on. They were confident enough in their humor to move through it, and that makes this like I said, I was pleasantly surprised by how watchable. So if they needed more references, my issue is I think there were the right number of references. I think if this was too referencing, if this gotten too much into Ready Player One of hey, you get it, then I would have been annoyed. I think that this really goes that middle line.
All right.
So I'm gonna be real. It barely used elements unless they were for a joke or pointing out how fucking weird the elements were, and I thought that was perfectly fine. That's all it really needed, given the whole premise and what it was doing. But yeah, it definitely played a bit fast and loose with that stuff.
Which is
personally,
yeah, which I could definitely see that being kind of a benefit. Yeah, because you don't need you don't need to do like the shows that we've seen so far rather you've used them a little bit too like willy-nilly and was a bit too much like the game, but I feel like this actually had a lot more nuanced take on it. It really benefited from it. The thing that I was thinking of is that I kind of just thought of it, but I'm kind of surprised that Dig Dug had very little use of his pump. He's actually more using his drill, which, yeah.
The pump led to jokes that are... That's why.
I guess. Yeah, that was just something I noticed. Also, that in itself is kind of a deeper cut because he only had that in like Dig Dug 2. And you can also see it as a kind of nod to Mr. Driller. But yes. So I think this question that we've used for other things is going to be, it's a little bit more straightforward in this one. Do you feel like this is more of a complement or supplement to the games, and I guess games in question?
I don't actually about any of that. It kind of just strikes stuff on its own and does its own thing, and I can appreciate for what it is and what it does, but like as an actual complement to the games, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I would also like none of this makes me want to go out and play the game. And I mean, I think Sky Kid is emblematic of that, where for years people argued whether Sky Kid was a bird or a person. So the fact that, he's rendered as a bird person, as clearly as a bird in this show, it's like, yeah, but you couldn't tell in Sky Kid, it has nothing to do with anything. You're dropping bombs on stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was kind of funny and it was kind of cute that they did this, but this is not commercial any more than, say, the Pac-Man Saturday morning AM cartoon show was.
Not for the games that's written around how these video games.
Well, it does feel like it's trying to draw attention to them, but it's not telling you anything about them.
I feel like it kind of has the same thing. Because I do feel that it is something that you don't lose 100% of it, but you do lose a little bit of it if you are not as familiar with some of these games. It's kind of like the thing, like Wreck-It Ralph, where they'll make a joke based on a particular character, which, if you're not familiar with it, it's okay, but it's like you do get a little bit extra if you get the reference to it. Like, just seeing the weird, like the thing that I think of in terms of Wreck-It Ralph, like in the bad guy therapy session scene.
Zangief.
Well, it's also Zangief. That's also funny, but also because you watch that and it's like, oh, huh, that's that weird. There's a, like, if you're not super familiar with games, it's like, oh, there's a weird Rhino guy. I guess just a random video game character. But if you're familiar with Altered Beast, it's like, holy shit, why is that guy from Altered Beast in this scene?
Yeah, this didn't annoy me as much as Wreck-It Ralph did. You brought up the evil villains, and the fact that Zangief's there annoys the hell out of me because he's not a bad guy.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing of, that's how.
Okay, yeah, so that's what you were getting at. Yeah, no, obviously these guys are turbo nerds and knew the properties back to front. I mean, there's a lot more Namco lore than I even.
Yes. So yeah, after that, I think we are good to actually rank this now. So we rank things here based on a 1 scale, with 1 being what we call absolute mastercraft, which means that there is pretty much no way that this could be, like, it is basically the top of the top. Very little can be done to improve it. And 21 is complete garbage. That is not even fun to watch as like a goof, kind of based on the kind of a rainbow scale. So let's go in alphabetical order. What number would you give it, starting Carnival? Okay. So that is in the violet/indigo, low violet / or high indigo.
I would, I would say you can rank. I'm not going to be as generous as you guys are. I would probably rank this at around a 9. I think it's very watchable, but there's one thing that I haven't brought up yet that bugs the hell out of me, and that is there is no lip sync.
I could definitely see that.
Wait,
that really bothered me. I know they made the characters very animated and they bounce, which is not something you like in a show like Harvey Birdman or C-Lab 2021. They would be very static, and the only thing moving is the mouth. They went the opposite, where the characters bob up and down, but there is no lip sync. And that really bothers me, especially after seeing like Nerdist and Dorkly and a bunch of other Sprite comic cartoons that had lip sync. So obviously it was possible. They just made an aesthetic decision, and it really just bothered me the whole time I was watching this. So
really,
that's me.
Because I did.
Yeah, it doesn't bug me in the slightest personally.
Yeah.
I think they did a really good job of working to cover it up, but it really bugs me.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, I definitely can see that. But
yeah, it's the sort of thing that doesn't bug me in the slightest, and it didn't even register. That would is an issue personally. But there's one thing I want to say real quick, which is at the very, very end, there was a joke that caught, I know, me, and Lolo, and Carnival incredibly off guard, and it was very good.
It was very good, but that is something that normally we kind of, all right, I'm not super big on spoilers, but I feel like that is something that we should not.
Exactly. That's what I'm just saying, is it was a really, really good joke. But personally, I'd say like 5 personally.
Yeah, because judging from, so Carnival saying like 2, 3, or 3, 4, 3, 4, and then Rafferty going 9, you going 5, 6. I mean, that I think that by averaging ours, it's around 6, which is kind of what I get it. Like, I can definitely see if this is not your style of humor, I can definitely see you being put off by this.
But you could throw my vote out. I mean, I'm an outlier, I know.
Oh, no,
no, it's still valid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if it is something that you like if it is something that, because I doubt you would be the only one that'd be.
And I'm also kind of generous. I'm the nice judge. So
And also, if I look at like if we're taking a look at reviews for like from other sources, like I'm looking at IMDb right now, it has a 6 out of 10, which is right roughly in the area that we're kind of looking to average. Based at least if you take IMDb to be what.
I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I definitely think that it is. I think that I would definitely put it like 7 lowest. But I think that from what they have to work with, I do feel like it came out really good.
yeah, I'm fine.
They brought their A games.
Oh well,
What they have to work with, which is the change found on the couch.
Oh, and I realized we forgot to mention some of the animators that worked on this are the later Alligator animators. So.
Oh, huh.
Oh.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that is yeah, because it's look and looking. I did look at their IMDb of 2 of the people who are that are noted as animators. They have worked on things. It seems like Word Girl is the thing that they both have in common that they worked a lot on. But they are both credited as working on Adventure Time. It seems like it's only a couple episodes, but in the only sequences. But yeah, they have worked on like bigger stuff.
Yeah, this has serious cred.
Yeah.
And Chris Straub, I mentioned this off the air. Chris Straub, who would do this, also was one of the production behind Candle Cove, which was a copy-paste television show. So he's got TV credits.
Huh. Yeah, because I wonder if I take a look. Oh, it's okay. That doesn't list. I wonder let's see. Okay. Never mind. I was going to try and see if I can quick find the credits for later Alligator, but that is proving to be harder than I thought. Anyway, so
that's credited under the Small Boo Studios, who the Bateras who worked on this are part of, or at least I believe they are. Maybe I'll look it up.
Okay. Well, going over here, going over to our list, we do have something already in 6, which that's fine if we have something in there. But we have the Mortal Kombat movie in there.
This is better than the.
Which I could.
Is it?
I could definitely see putting it at the same level as the Mortal Kombat movie, because it's the same kind of thing that I felt like with the Mortal Kombat movie, actually, where it's the Mortal Kombat movie could have been a lot worse, but it wasn't. And it's
okay, right. I forget everything's in a scale. Definitely, it's in the
yeah.
Still would Mappy.
Yeah. That's just like
Either way.
Yeah. So yeah, I do feel that 6 is okay. So 6, Mappy. This is episode 2013.
Haha.
Is it Scott? Oh crap! I forgot which one's the actual. I'll just put Scott Kirby. He is the director that is listed. It is Webb. Also, Tone. This is very whimsical. Okay, so there's nothing really content-wise that I would have to note. Okay,
No.
So is there anything we want to call out for music, charm, cinematography, theatrics, action, or art?
I'd say thumbs up for charm at least.
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely a case.
I do think that the art style does a good job of playing to the strengths. Like I said, I'm the only one who's bothered by the lip sync, but I think they design the fact that the characters have so many emotive states makes it, if they were just bouncing up and down like paper, this unwatchable. So either art or charm.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like I could definitely agree with that, because they're simple in relative design, but they're like it's a really good symbol. Is there anything we want to call out for yay or nay?
With love.
That you can definitely get behind, because some of the jokes behind that are definitely you need to know your things. And that's her. Okay, anything else?
Not really.
Okay. Then I think that is good for Mappy. So before we head out to our next episode, is there anything you want to plug, starting with Carnival? I'm going to have you repeat that because I think you cut out a little bit.
You can follow me at.
I'm Norman Rafferty. When I'm not commenting on podcasts, I'm working on Sanguine Games. So we'll have check us in for a sale this week. Our cartoon properties should be on sale. We make tabletop role-playing games like Madcap. So check in for that if you like cartoon characters.
Fucking at TorpidTypist on Twitter and twitch.tv/TorpidTypist. And also, I'd like to plug these holes in my company that's too big to fail.
Yes. All right. So with that, that is going to do it for Mappy. So our next episode is something that Actually, probably this is one of the properties that actually made me think of wanting to do this thing, because a
Yes.
long while ago, we took a look at a game based on Mobile Police Patlabor for the Famicom Disk System. And we were
As an
playing it as like,
excuse.
boy, this game really did not do the thing justice. So we will see exactly how good Mobile Police Patlabor, at least the OVA series, which is dubbed the Patlabor of the early days, has held up till this day. So tune in for that one, and thank you all for listening. This has been another episode of Media Delta. If you would like to view the entire list of rankings for yourself, you can go to r3.ldp.life to see the Resonance and Essence list that Media Delta covers, as well as the other lists that are covered by our sister show, Retro Rank Rhapsody. If you would like to watch Retro Rank Rhapsody, you can watch it live on Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live on Twitch at twitch.tv/loadedpuzzlo. Or you can view any of the episodes anytime at youtube.ldp.life. If you would like to help with hosting costs, you can go to patreon.ldp.life and help out with a $2 or $5 pledge. If you would like to discuss this episode and any other episode of our community, you can join our Discord server at discord.ldp.life. If you want to follow the show on Twitter, you can follow it at Hazeltown Story, or you can follow me, your host, at LoloDePuzzlo. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come back for a round for the next episode.